Hey everybody, this is Chelsea Schaefer.
And Caitlin Dustov.
And this is The Score, the official podcast of the sport of team roping. This is the Team Roping Journal's semi-weekly podcast highlighting the team roping industry's top talents and influencers through stories that inspire and connect ropers. We sit down with ropers from the professional ranks as well as industry icons and producers to delve into topics that make the team roping world tick. This is Season 2. It will feature even deeper interviews, storytelling, and issue-based coverage, and we are so excited you're here. Before we get started, we've got to thank our sponsors at Fastback Ropes. They're presenting this week's episode, and they just launched a new rope, the Cobalt. Similar in diameter to the Excalibur, this rope will appeal to ropers who prefer more tip weight and less body or bounce, and we'll tell you more about it later in this episode. If you can't wait, head on over to fastbackropes.com and check it out. Travis Tryan's ProRodeo Hall of Fame head horse Walt, registered with the AQHA as Precious Speck, was a four-time AQHA PRCA Head Horse of the Year in 2003, and then from 2007 the whole way to 2009. The horse was iconic for a whole lot more than his signature fluffy forelock and always forward ears, and he shaped the careers of both Travis and Clay Tryan. Travis was just a kid trying to make it on the rodeo road when he got Walt, but on him he quickly became the youngest team roper ever to accrue over $1 million in earnings. Walt is the first rope horse, first hopefully of many, in the ProRodeo Hall of Fame, inducted in 2015, a little over 5 years after he died warming up for slack in Clovis, California. Walt's story underscores how critical great horses are in rodeo, and unfortunately, how fleeting their time on Earth really is. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you so much for being on The Score. Do you listen to podcasts? You can say no.
I do listen to like the Dan Patrick Show and stuff. So
the Dan Patrick Show. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Sports podcast, pretty good.
Yeah, your brother also tells me that he listens to sport podcasts because mine needs to be really good for him to start wanting to listen to it. So hopefully one of these days.
Well, I'll listen to it now because now I'll know where to listen.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Well, hey, so I don't know. I want to talk about Walt because we've been doing these special horse episodes. I mean, we did one on Scooter. That was kind of the first one we did. And so obviously Walt has to be on the list if we're doing episodes with all the great horses. There's no way to do one without doing Walt. So I appreciate that. I don't know if you're sick of talking about the horse yet or not. Like, can you get sick of talking about him?
No, because he was family to me. So I don't think you ever get sick of talking about family. So, I mean, to me, it's like, a lot of these kids that are 20 years old, and that was 9 years ago that he died. So, it was a long time ago. These kids don't even probably remember him a lot of times. So, I mean, yeah, I love talking about him. I think he's the greatest horse there's ever been. I'm partial to him, of course, but I mean, he just did so much stuff that I see a lot of horses, and I've been on a lot of horses that they can't do it. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think we learn so much from kind of talking about and learning about these great horses. It teaches a lot. So I'm glad you are not sick of talking about Walt. Yeah, absolutely. Now, so his registered name was Precious Speck. Yes. Tell me about Walt that raised him. How did you know the man who raised this horse? Well, he lived in the Northwest, which, it's about 7 hours from us. So we'd see him occasionally at jackpots and about once a year. And we just, they had the BDR Classic in the fall in October when we were younger, and that's when we'd see him, and you'd see him around occasionally at some jackpots, but we didn't run into him a lot. We just knew that he roped good and he had good horses. Mm-hmm. And my dad was actually calling around looking for horses, and he called Rich Carpenter, and Rich Carpenter is the one that's good friends with him, lives up in Kalispell, and which Walt was over by Polson area. Mm-hmm. And that's how he goes, if I was looking for one, that's what I'd go try. So
Now, let's take it back. Do you know what how much did Walt ranch on this horse? What was his background before? He was 10 by the time you got him, right? So
Yeah, he was 10. And, when we went up there to try him, funny story is he showed up, he was unloaded out of the trailer, saddled on. I mean, it was probably, I don't know, it was probably 8, 9 o'clock at night. He was at a jackpot, tied off, heeling on him at a round robin earlier that day. And then, when we woke up at 7 in the morning, every horse was saddled on his place, standing there eating, including him. And he said that he rode him and ranched on him out there. And he told me, he said he's not a kid's horse because when he was raising John Vermandal, that he was riding him and he run off with him out in the pasture. So he just knew, and he just rode him, and he just ranched on him and did all the cowboy stuff he'd do. In fact, I tried him in split reins and no tie down. So we put a tie down on him right away because I'm like, hey, I think we're going to need one.
So when you put a tie down, was he overwhelmingly fast at the beginning? Like, did you have to do anything to him, slow him down, anything like that? I mean, obviously you didn't slow him down long term, but did you have to back him off or anything?
The one thing that he wasn't used to doing a little bit was he stood there and scored pretty good, but when Walt had him, his box was like 20 some feet long, like World Series type stuff now, before there was ever World Series type stuff. Well, he would just start him 18 feet, like he hardly ever backed him into a corner. And I remember when I tried to back him in the corner, he had an indoor arena, and he wanted to stay about 6 inches off the back. And that was, so he was it didn't take him long to get over that, but that was just one of the things. And then as far as roping on him, he just knew to run to the steer. Walt run all the way to the steer, roped him, and he knew that he was supposed to go there. So the only thing that I really had to do to him was just refine him on the scoring just a little bit. He scored great. I mean, when I say refine him, I'm just rodeo type stuff, and then get him quick enough to where you could win on him, because at first he was hard to be 5 seconds on because you rope and he'd keep going to the steer. So it took me about, I don't know, 3-4 months of just jackpotting on him, riding him, and Clay riding him, and we both rode him throughout the winter. And I remember riding him at Denver, and we started getting going, and about the time Austin come around in March, you could tell that he got it figured out. And then it was just, from then on, it was just rope, get after it.
So I guess I have a lot of questions about the early. So first of all, how did he become your horse and not Clay's horse? How did Clay not need a horse at the time?
I think Clay had just bought one before that. And then I didn't own one. So I'd won enough throughout the summer healing to make a down payment on him. And then we made a deal that I had to pay so much by the first of the year. And then when I did good, I had to pay finish paying him out. If we didn't do good on him, then the price was that. If we did good on him, then the price was going to be this. So my healing, basically, the ironic thing about it is my healing actually bought him. So that's kind of how it went about. So he was mine, and I went and won good healing, and then I did good at the U.S. finals and won, which would be the 13 now, won the 9 down there with Britt Williams, and I was good to go. Rodeo then it was game on.
How much healing did you do on him? You said healing paid for him, but was it healing?
I didn't do any healing on him unless I had to rebuild at a rodeo, and that only happened a couple times. But
those were the days, huh?
Oh, man, those were the days. People don't even know that you had to rebuild sometimes in the short rounder at the NFR.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I never had to heal on him at the NFR because I threatened any of my healers, if I miss, don't you dare head him. Don't you even think about it. He wasn't bad to heal on. In fact, one day I was just going to exercise him, and I was like, man, I'll just heal some on him because it'll be easier on him. I don't want to turn him off. So I was just going to hang back. And I think it was at Wade Wheatley's. I know it was. Wade run up there and stuck one, and just snappy as Wade is, squared him up good. And I'm just thinking, we're just going to I'm going to have to ease him in there. And son of a gun, I about fell off the right side just because he just got in. he just went in there like he was supposed to. And if I would just heel on him, he'd be all right. But I mean, he was just a little strong and a little free to be really good at it.
Now, had you ridden a lot of horses with that much thoroughbred in them before, or that much run to them? Did you like that kind of horse before you got him?
I'd never rode any. I mean, I'd rode some good ones, but I never rode as hard as he'd run. Once he got the rating part figured out, once he figured out what you wanted him to do, I think that's what made him so great. Is he would love to compete with you. Like, you're at Cheyenne, steer's out there 30 feet and running, and he's probably out there more than 30 feet by the time you actually hit the barrier, even if you get a really good start. And he run as hard as he possibly could, harder than he would on a normal setup, until you got to the spot where he felt like you were going to rope, and then he'd rate off and let you rope. And then he would never overrun the situation anymore. So whether you were at the NFR or at Cheyenne or at just a longer setup, he competed right along with you. So if you wanted to run in there, he'd go all the way to him. He could kind of feel you. And if you wanted to go at him a little bit, he would go ahead and rate a little sooner to give you a chance to be fast.
That's awesome. That is awesome. When was the first time you realized that he was great? Like, what was the moment that you were like, wow, I have the best head horse of all time? Did it take a while, or did you feel that pretty early?
Well, I knew I had something pretty special when it was I bought him in Labor Day weekend. And then Billings, the Nile, was in October. We went to that, and then we went down to the U.S. finals. And, man, I guess I would have been 19 at the time. And I was roping with Matt Robertson. Well, we were what would be a 15 team now. And after 2 in the open, we're leading it on 2. And Clay comes up to me and he goes, hey, I wouldn't sell that horse for nothing. My brother did, just in case someone asked. And I kind of knew then. I was like, man, it felt just real easy. Like, it was like, man, I mean, we didn't do any good later on, but that wasn't his fault. That was, I can't even remember what happened. But I knew at that point that I had something that was pretty good. And then the more we rode him and watched Clay ride him, we'd be buddied, so we'd have to get a split. So he'd rope, or I would rope, and then you'd have a 3-team split maybe, or 2, and then he'd come back right on there, and we'd both do good. And then he kept working like it was no big deal, while everybody else is, half the head horses are ducking out of sight by the end of July. He's still just probably the first year right around midsummer where you're like, man, we're both riding him, and he's still just basically better than everything out here and working more consistent than anything. I think that was kind of about that time. And then, as far as like greatness goes, to me, like, greatness is you got to have some longevity with your career. Like, there's been a lot of really good horses, and if they would have lasted 10 years, they might be, some of the best of all time, but they might have only lasted 2 or 3, injury or something like that. Or, so I think that point I knew I had probably the best one going at the time. I just didn't know, my gosh, I didn't know he was going to do what he did.
And last this long. Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea. I knew he was tough, but I mean, you can be tough all you want. And that was kind of the point, the first year when me and Clay were both riding him.
Yeah. And at 19, you were going to rodeo at that point. I'm just trying to, what was going on in your life as a 19-year-old header that Walt was kind of the perfect storm? Yeah.
Not a thing at 19.
Yeah.
I turned 20 right at the start of that year, first year I made the finals. But, I've been dreaming since I was a kid, and you rope what they had. You remember the rockin' ropers? You're probably too young for that.
Yeah, those are before my time.
They're called fast lanes now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, they didn't have the cool heads on them then, but you'd rope the dummy in the backyard dreaming of someday going to the NFR. So, that's what I wanted to do from the time I was young. I wanted to make the NFR. Well, he was kind of the point where, because the year before I was so sick of heading because I didn't have a very good head horse, and heading was zero fun for me. And he was kind of one, and getting to rope with my dad that summer before I even bought him kind of got me to liking heading again. I was riding my brother's head horse, and it was kind of fun again. And then he was the one that kind of kept me heading. And that was, I didn't have anything else to do. I wanted to go rodeo. I wanted to be gone all the time, and I had nothing to be home for. So it was kind of the perfect time for me.
Now, tell me what you said. You didn't have anything, but did you know your wife at the time, or did Walt come before your wife?
Walt came before my wife.
Walt came before your wife. That's cool. Did Walt help you? Did she like Walt from the beginning? Was she kind of the hook, like a puppy dog?
Yeah, and you know what? If you would spend 5 minutes around him, anybody loved him. I mean, he spent some time at the vet after a colic, and I mean that he was their favorite horse in there. And I mean, he was just one of those horses that you thought he could speak. I mean, he just knew what was going on. He just well-mannered. He enjoyed being around him. He'd give you everything he got, whatever you wanted, whatever you asked of him. And I mean, so yeah, she loved him. She kept him going. She was a huge part of keeping him going because she took care of him as good as anybody could take care of a horse.
Now, what were some of the things that he needed extra care for? Did he have any leg problems? You said he colicked. Give me some of his health history before he died.
The first little deal that he had no issues, tendons, nothing like that. I mean, he was the way he run. I think he never put any pressure on his joints, but he did have ring bone. And about the third year I was riding him, would have been 5th year I was riding him, I guess. 2005 is when it got really bad. And it's to the point he couldn't hardly walk. And that's when Dr. Greg Veneclausen did some experimental deal on him, and it ended up fusing the joint. Well, when it fused the joint, then he was good. So as far as the only other thing that he ever had before that was an issue was he would tie up on you. So I had to feed him. He loved his alfalfa, but I had to feed him a small flake in the morning, small flake at night, and I would feed him a half a 5-gallon bucket of Equine Senior morning and night. And that's the only that kept him from tying up. And if I just fed him alfalfa or something, he probably tied up on me 7 or 8 times before that, and then I think he tied up on me 1 time after that the rest of his career. So that was his only really issue. And then he had the ring bone issue, and that he was out for about 7 months. And once he come back, I mean, he didn't require anything. I'd get his hocks injected every 4 or 5 months, and that was about it. I'd had to shoe him consistently because his foot would grow in because his pastern was fused. But other than that, I mean, as low maintenance as you could get.
Now, you shot him? Or did somebody else
I did not.
him?
Oh, no. Heck no. Are you kidding me?
I don't know. I don't know if you're a shoer, Travis.
I don't want the responsibility of that.
Yeah. Gotcha.
No, Eric Thomas in Amarillo did a good job. I mean, he did a really good job. In fact, I would drive him there because it was important to get it done right, just so we didn't put the pressure on. We didn't know how good if it was fused or if it would, we didn't know. This was all experimental, so we had no idea how long it would last or if it would last. So we would get him shot every 6 weeks, and if we had to maybe fly Eric into Billings, or if Hillary would have to drive down to Amarillo, if I was busy rodeoing, then we'd just have to do it. And it was just what we did until he died.
Well, okay, so you were 19 when you got him. Pretty quickly, I feel like a lot of 19-year-olds don't necessarily know the best way to take care of a horse. Was it a learning curve for you, or was your dad really adamant early on about horse care? Like, did you...
Well, I mean, you knew how to take care of one, but, do you truly know how to take care of a head horse until you get out there and rodeo? I don't think you do. The good thing is Clay had been out there and rodeoed a little bit, so we were kind of traveling around, so that helped. You learn some of the stuff, how to manage him, and the main thing with, like where you travel, what you do with them, and how you rope on them. That's the main thing, I think you take care of one and take care of good head horses. There are times that you don't need to, reach a long ways and do that when you got a rodeo. If you're trying to win 200 or 500 and you got Reno the next day, well, you don't want to just bomb out on him. And so you kind of manage them that way. And until you get out there and do it, it's just kind of a learning experience. And I had Clay there, and he helped out a lot, and so that's I just kind of leaned on that, and then watch the other guys. You watch what Speed did, watch what T. Woolman did. Those guys were out there, so you pay attention and learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. That first NFR that you made on him, was he a grand entry horse too, or did you guys bring a grand entry horse?
He was my grand entry horse, and then yes, yeah, because I only owned one. See, I rodeoed my whole first year on one head horse. No backup.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no backup plan. I guess Clay had one, so we kind of used it. Between the two of us, we had two horses, and maybe he bought one later on in the year, so maybe there was three between the two of us. But he was deathly terrifying to ride as a grand entry horse and a victory lap horse. Terrifying. Honestly, towards the end of it, I got wise to it, because you take a victory lap in the go round, and I lost my hat the first time because I was about to run over Tom Feller. If you guys,
oh my gosh,
yeah, I lost my hat going out the gate the very first time, the first go round I won, because he was just running off with me, and I went to put it back on, about run over Tom Feller. So.
How much fun did everybody else? Did they make fun of you, or did
no? They made fun of me for losing my hat.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Did you take a beating for losing your hat? I feel like. Oh
yeah, sure. Wade Wheatley got on me pretty good about that. That's all right. That's good fun, man. That was what are friends for. So, but yeah, and then later on in the NFR, you went to go around. I had my other horse sitting there waiting. And I would get off him so I could actually enjoy the victory lap. Other than that, I would just be on two hands pulling. And when you had to rebuild at the NFR before they changed it in 2009, if I missed one, he would run off. I couldn't even hardly build my loop. He would run off until he got to the spot, until he got next to the steer, then he'd slow down. So I had to build my loop. Basically, it felt like he was running off. And then once then he'd chill out once he got to his spot, but he could not idle to a steer. And I think that's honestly what made him great. I think it bothered him. You couldn't score and just, hey, I'm just going to kind of lope 40 feet behind the steer. He just was going to go to a spot, and he couldn't idle. There was no idle in him until he got to the spot where you were going to rope.
Did he ever make a kid's horse? Like, was there? No, he never.
No, you could sit there and hold your kid on top of him, but he wasn't. No. Would you ever? I would never, ever, ever, ever turn a kid loose on him, because I know he would run off. No, without a doubt, he would run off.
I guess that's a special one that makes him good, huh?
Well, he wouldn't hurt you as long as you stayed on, but if you fell off, it might hurt. But as long as you stayed on him, you were going to be good. But there's no way I would put a kid on him. And Walt Vermendal told me that. He said he's not a kid's horse. He will not be a kid's horse. Perfect. Yeah. I don't want a kid's horse.
Now, you obviously mounted out your brother quite a bit. Clay rode him. Trevor rode him. Did a lot of guys hop on him? Did you let people ride him often, or was it he had enough work?
No, a lot of guys rode him. Matt Tyler rode him. I know Charles Pogue rode him. Steve Purcell rode him. At the beginning, a lot of guys rode him. Wade Wheatley rode him. Kevin Daniels. Trying to think who else did. And then Clay rode him a bunch. I don't know who else. I know I'm probably forgetting someone. Yeah, at the beginning he got, but once after he come back from his ring bone, I didn't. Only like a couple guys got on him after that. Yeah. And just because I was like, man, I don't know what this is, so I'm not going to run a bunch of runs on him. I'm going to run the least amount of runs possible on him, just because I don't know what it entails. And he lasted 3 years or 3.5 years after that. So. Sure.
Did you won so much on him. You won everywhere. It didn't matter what size of pen. But did you have a favorite place to ride him? You won Pendleton, Cheyenne,
Yeah, Cheyenne probably was the easiest money in the world.
I bet, yeah.
Probably the easiest money. If you're going to say, I needed to make a car payment or a truck payment or anything, I would probably say, yeah, put me at Cheyenne, just because I'm going to have the advantage no matter what. You got the shorter scores, or you say you have a normal setup, a 16-foot barrier or a 16-foot box. There's guys that can make some runs, and your horse doesn't necessarily make the difference. Well, Cheyenne, he made the difference. And gosh, I can't even hardly remember a time that I didn't win anything there, or at least have the opportunity to win something there. And since he's been gone, it's been really hard at Cheyenne. Cheyenne hasn't been as easy. We'll just say that.
Didn't you have trouble getting to Cheyenne? Didn't you have trouble getting to Cheyenne one year? Like, weren't you? Is there a story about that?
Yeah, we did.
I understand. No, that's for a later date.
Is that for another podcast?
That could be for another. No, I mean, if you have that story, I remember you guys running. Didn't you take a Jeep?
We took they have a courtesy car at the airport in Laramie, and the pilot that was supposed to fly us to Cheyenne, he decided he wasn't going to, because there was an air show and he could land there, but they wouldn't let him take off. So he refused to take us to Cheyenne, and we're paying this guy.
Yeah.
And we're coming from Ogden, and then we landed in Laramie probably right when the performance started.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have a rental car there. We do not. That's like 10 minutes away. And so all I know is I got thrown some keys to a courtesy van because one of the pilots said, hey, you guys need it more than we do. So I took it because I guess I had the family, most of the family, so I was the responsible one. And then we drove it and put the little yellow blinking light on top of it, so people would get out of our way on the interstate. And
that's what I remember. I remember the blinking light.
Yeah. So then, I told the guys, I said, well, you guys are going to bail me out if we get in trouble for this one. So I said, but they threw me the keys. So, we were willing to chance it. And we showed up, about 3 bulldoggers before they team roped.
Yeah, I remember I was standing there taking pictures, and I pinned your back numbers on. Yes. And I remember how panicked that was. Sorry for the diversion, but when you brought up Cheyenne, I was like, oh gosh, I just remembered that. That was hilarious.
Yeah. Then my steer hit the barrier and run right down the left fence, and I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to end. It's supposed to be a lot better story than that one.
Yeah, it still makes a decent story. It would have been more fun if you'd have won Cheyenne. And
exactly.
Oh man. Now, before we go any further, I want to take a break from this interview with Travis to tell you about our sponsors at Fastback Ropes. They've got a new rope out called the Cobalt, I mentioned that earlier, that launches July 1, and you're going to love it. I've talked to a ton of Fastback endorsees who've had this rope under embargo for the last few months, and they've all told me how much this rope has helped their roping. Guys like Brock Hansen, Cesar De La Cruz, and Dakota Kirchenschlager have been testing it for you, and they're hooked. It's aqua blue, makes it easy to see, and it's a combination of poly and dyed nylon that makes for a really durable rope. Now, Fastback dealers are welcome to pre-order it right now, but it's not available, like I said, until July 1. It's going to be available in a 31-foot head rope, in extra soft, soft, and medium soft, and the heel rope is going to be available, of course, in 35-foot, and available in soft, medium, and hard medium. This rope, you can buy it on fastbackropes.com and at your Fastback dealers. All right, back to Walt. Do you have a moment that when you think about Walt, it's what you think about, like an NFR or a rodeo win or anything that, like, obviously Cheyenne, you said, was easy money, but what was most meaningful in the time that you rode Walt, or a memory or anything like that?
The George Strait roping that was the most meaningful one. And when I was 3-5 to put me back in the world title race there in the 8th round with Petska. Mm-hmm. That was those 2 moments right there. The George Strait, when I won first and second, it was, you could just, I knew it when I started the roping. He would let you do anything you wanted. Well, the steers were pretty fresh. Well, a lot of these guys, that you got to be decently fast to get qualified. So your horse, that was one thing he was good about, is he could be really fast the day before. Well, then he come back. Well, we roped pretty fresh steers. Well, a lot of guys are jerking them down. They can't keep them on their feet, or they're making them really hard to heel. Well, when I saw that, I there was a couple guys that I knew, headers, that were going to make it maybe kind of tough. And my brother was one, and he had a horse that would allow him to do that. Chad Masters was the other one. There was probably one other guy in there too. I can't remember right now offhand, but I know those two guys had the horses that were, two of the best horses that you were going to have to compete against, because even though you roped fast, your horse had to hold up and stay with them just to keep them healable. Well, once I got through the first round, I'm like, man, that was just, you could just feel it. And he would just do whatever he wanted to do. And that point was really neat. Plus, when it come down in your first and second high call, I knew that he was going to do good.
Yeah.
And when you know that what you're riding is going to make the right decision, no matter what I did, he was going to do good, that the confidence there is second to none. And then, so then that turned out really good, and that was a huge win. And then as far as like the 8th round at the NFR, when we had to get back in it, and the 3-6 is winning it, I think, and we needed to win the round really to get back in it, and we had the steer to do it, that was just another moment that was just, just typical of what he was. I mean, when you get in those big moments, he was better or just as good as he's always been in those big moments. Even if I was a nervous wreck, he wasn't. So,
do you believe, I don't know if it's anthropomorphizing too much, but do you believe that he knew the big moments, or it didn't matter to him?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I mean, they can feel a fly on their back. They can dang sure feel if my adrenaline's going, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I know how I felt in those situations. So as far as but it didn't affect him. If it affected him, it affected him in a positive way. And I've been on horses where I've felt the same way. And it hasn't worked out near as good come the short round. They get to, they'll get quick on you, or they won't score. They'll take off early. And he just wasn't like that. He was just, man, it was just you had a comfort right there between him and me, and whoever got on him, usually, if they would just let him do what he was going to do. Did
you take anything for granted? Looking back now, do you think you took him for granted at all?
I didn't take him for granted. I think a little bit what I did was, I don't know if I practiced my butt off, but I don't know if I pushed myself enough to get better roping wise. Mm-hmm. Because I worked on the shots that he was going to provide me.
I see.
And I perfected them. What I felt like I did. I got them, and I was like, man, this is where I'm going to get. This is kind of the area I'm going to get. When I was like, I don't think I worked hard enough on something but I didn't take him for granted. I just don't think I pushed myself to expand my roping, I guess, to what I, was going to end up riding eventually.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had to work on quite a bit after he was gone, and I wish I would worked on it more so it would have been a little smoother transition.
Can you take us to the day that you lost him?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that day and what was going on? And
that day sucked, honestly. It really did. It wasn't a good day. A lot of things happened, and it was actually a blessing that this happened. But I remember warming him up, Clovis slack, beautiful day out. It was back to back. We're about, 8-10 bulldoggers away from team roping, and I always blew him out. Like, I blew him out every time before a run, because that's just when he felt his best, to just get him going. Well, I blew him out in the warm-up arena, and I just didn't feel like, he just didn't feel like he, so I was like, I'll do it again. And it ain't the first time that's happened. Well, when I get done blowing him out the second time, then it's like he spooked at a shadow, and then he didn't stop spooking at a shadow, and then I knew. And so we probably made it a good 60, 70 feet side passing, not wanting to go down. And then we ended up on the back of a drag, or whatever they worked the arena with at Clovis, which I got out of there pretty clean. I don't know how I got out of there pretty clean, but he ended up laying on the drag. So, I mean, looking back on it, I like to think, well, you never did hit the ground. So, I mean, and he didn't freak out, and it was like he didn't want to go down, and that's just kind of how he was. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that was a hard moment for the family. So I'm glad my wife didn't see it. So.
Yeah, that was going to ask. She wasn't there.
She was there.
She was there.
She was in the stands, and it happened behind the stands. So, that was just a bad deal. So that was the end of my 3-month stretch where I lost my good yellow horse to or I didn't lose him, but he was done after that. And then I lost my other horse to liver disease. And then he was the last one, and I left with a crippled practice horse and a pony leaving California.
You did not go to Walt.
I did not. That was a little hard for me and the family, so I didn't really want to go back through it again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, no, Bert took care of it, and he was gracious to do it at his place under a big, nice oak tree, and I mean, it was a perfect spot for him.
That is very nice of him. I guess that had to be impossible. And you were basically afoot then after that. What did the rest of that year look like?
Oh, the rest of that year, man, it was challenging. Just, I don't know. I mean, I was out there, and my daughter had got in a little wreck. She got run over by the horse, about a month before that. And it was just kind of a rough little couple months. And, everybody turned out safe, and God healed everybody and kept everybody safe. And that was awesome. And then I ended up buying a horse from Shane Phillip, nice horse. And then just kind of had some ups and downs throughout the year, because I had a really good start. And then it was hard to make the finals. I got behind, and I was high call at the BFI and ended up losing my rope to win it that year. And then it was just kind of a struggle. And then I started roping with Rich Skelton, and then we just kind of picked it up, ended up making the finals and doing good. I mean, I thought it was one of the most, it was the most challenging year I had rodeoing, period. Mm-hmm. And still made the NFR, still had a good year. And it wasn't just a whole lot of good things that happened throughout that year, but perseverance. It's a good thing for you sometimes.
I mean, I guess so. This is a dumb question, but I feel like there could be a lot to it. Like, what does losing a horse like Walt do to a roping career? I mean, and what has the struggle been to find another one?
Well, when it happens all at once, see, I thought I was preparing, because I knew the time was going to come when I couldn't ride him. Well, I'd bought a couple of horses, and I was working on, keeping myself mounted, and then I lost them all at once. And once you lose them all at once, within 3 months, man, it just kind of set me back. And like I said, I should have. And then I was having to change my roping right in the middle of that to adjust to what I was riding. So, it just got harder and more of a struggle. And then after that, I never found anything like him. I found some good horses and rode some good horses, but then after that, my kids started getting older, and then I didn't really want to go certain spots. And then once I stopped wanting to really be there, I wanted to be home more than I wanted to be out there. Even if you are roping good, it just doesn't seem like you win like you should. If you're going to rodeo against guys that are that talented and that good, you got to be all in out there. And I think that was the main thing once my kids started getting older, is the drive and the passion to go be out on the road to do it. You'd kind of lose it. And so that was more than anything. But missing a horse like that, it's like taking away one of the best parts of your team.
Yeah.
And so you got to adjust, and it doesn't make it easier. I know that.
But if you found another one, if somebody sent you an outside horse to ride, and all of a sudden you thought, wow, this horse feels like Walt, would it make you want to go rodeo again?
It would make me want to go to some bigger events sometimes. And, but with what my kids, because I've been asked that a couple times now because I haven't rodeoed for 2 years. And as long as it didn't sacrifice me watching my kids do certain things and being around them, then I would go to a few more things here and there. Would I full time it again? The answer is probably at least not until my youngest is out of school. And then I'm going to be in my mid 40s when that happens. So likelihood not. I'd probably, get them circuit rodeo, go to some big jackpot stuff like that, and then make people ask me to buy them and try and talk me into selling him, and I just would be that old guy that wouldn't do it. It would just keep him,
Yeah.
That's probably what I do. I kind of have some fun with it.
What kind of numbers were you offered for Walt over the years?
No, I never got offered anything.
Nah.
I promise you, I never got offered nothing because I think there wasn't a price that you could put on him that I would have sold him.
Really?
Yeah, I say that, and people are like, "Well, we just sold him for that," and I'm like, "I don't think I would." I said because, man, then it feels like you're selling, like you don't put. I don't know, like it's not selling. I mean, it just feels like now you're just putting money above everything, and I was like, I don't think there's no way that I could have sold him, and no matter what, because money comes and goes. That's what I learned. The older you get, money comes and goes. You got the memories of your family, your kids, watching them grow up, stuff like that. And when they're family, you can't put a price on it. And I know that might sound foolish in a way, but that's just kind of how I feel about certain things. And, you win so much. You ask all these people that have won all that they've won in their career, most of the money's spent. So,
yeah.
But you always have that horse, or you always have those memories. And if they're family, man, they're just not for sale.
Yeah, absolutely. What made him run with his ears up? That was something that everybody remembers about Walt.
His ears forward? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea. He's the only horse that I know that just did it. I don't know. Do you know of any other horse that's ever did that?
Not in my memory. Not every time.
I just look at it as, man, he was just unique about it. I think he just loved doing what he did. I think he just loved it so much that it was just like, I'm just having a blast out here doing it. I think that's because I've never seen another horse do it.
Yeah, me neither. Did you ever look for any siblings of his, or were there any that were ever good? Or
there were some, and there was a couple good ones. I think Dustin Bird's Dolly's related to him.
Mm-hmm.
There was another guy in Montana that circuit rodeoed. Brant Davis had a nice horse that was related to him. I looked for him, but none were full. I looked for the mom because the mom was the one that had the thoroughbred in her.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no full brothers to him, completely full brothers. There were some half brothers to him, half sisters, but there was no. And I don't think I think we couldn't find the mom, or the mom died or something like that when we were looking.
Gotcha. Do you are you still actively looking for good horses, or if one comes along, that'd be cool?
I mean, I look. I mean, because I'm at a lot of ropings and a lot of jackpots, and do a lot of roping schools now. Put on a lot of ropings, and still compete at some circuit rodeos just because I have, the desire to compete still. Not all the time, but just a few months out of the year. Still fun. And my kid wants to run barrels, so if we're going to do that, then I will be there doing something too. And so, yeah, I mean, I kind of keep my eye out on something because I enjoy it more than anything. Like if you've ever been on something great or rode something, they're just fun.
Yeah.
They're just fun to ride. They're fun to compete on. So more than that, I mean, if you're going to do something, heck, do it with the best, because it's a lot more fun to ride a great one than one that, is just okay.
Heck yeah. Now, do you enjoy putting on the ropings? Is it your job, or are you passionate about it, right?
Yeah, it's part of it's part of what I do. It's a part of part of, the roping school, stuff like that. Yeah, I enjoy it. I've gotten to, the last couple of years, I've gotten to know a lot of people that I haven't normally got, that I've known, but I've actually gotten to know them. And it's a lot of fun. You get to see the same faces. I get to go, around and hang out with them for the weekend. And it's good. It's a good transition. I'm busy now. I'm probably busier than I was, but I'm home more. If that makes any sense. So,
sure.
So it's good. It's a good transition. It was the right decision to make. And yeah, I do enjoy it.
Are you going to stay in Montana all winter? Do you go to Arizona in the winter, or are you full-blooded Montanan right now? I am
the full-blooded hang out in the winter. I would. Man, it needs to be nicer up here in the winter. I know that. That's all I got to say. I coach my youngest in basketball. I have the last couple of years, so I don't really get to go anywhere. And I watch, my oldest plays too. And that's kind of the stuff that they're like, "Oh, you want to go to Arizona for a month?" And I'm like, I could go, but I'm like, if I do that, then it's kind of the same thing. I don't want to be gone that much. Unless they go with me, then that's different. But they got school and they got that. So, man, I got away a little bit. Went to Vegas. Went to the World Series finals this year. Me and my wife, and actually got to see Vegas in a different light than I've ever seen it before. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was more fun to compete at the rodeo, but it was different. It was fun. It was nice to get away for a little bit. So.
Awesome. Well, I really hope you find that other great horse and you end up back on the road when you're ready. But for now, for now, I like that you are always available to answer my phone calls more than ever before. And
always.
It's awesome, and I'm glad the ropings have been good though.
The Wrangler ropings have been good. I put on some World Series ropings; they're good too. So we're just getting in the swing of things. Got the World Class Invitational coming up, the Open that had 75,000.
Yeah,
coming the first weekend in June, May 30th, 31st.
That's June coming 1st fast.
And 2nd. Yeah, it's coming fast. So getting ready for all that. That's a big one. So we're excited about that. And then I got travel softball we get to do every weekend in between all that stuff. So it's good things.
Holy cow, that's awesome. Well, yeah. I am so glad you're getting to enjoy your family, Travis. And I miss pinning back numbers on you when you're coming in hot to Cheyenne. But I am glad that you're doing the family thing. I think that's just so awesome and valuable.
Yeah, and if you hear that I got a good horse, you'll know the game plan that I got. So
I will. I'm looking
next great one comes around, you'll know that people will be like, "You just won't sell him." Like, yep.
Exactly. Just going to be that curmudgeon that just that's all.
You can only look. You can't have him. You can only look.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for hanging with us, and I appreciate it, Travis.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Bye.
Before we go, I want to thank Travis for his time. He was very patient and very wonderful to work with, as always. Travis, thank you again. Everybody, if there are other horses that you think you want to hear their story, please let us know. We love to tell them. Shoot me an email at cschaefer@aimmedia.com. Thank you all. Remember to leave us a review. Share this with your friends. Make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you're listening to. And have a great week. We'll talk at you soon. Hey, before you leave, remember, thank Fast Back Ropes for supporting coverage of the sport of team roping and supporting telling these stories. Fastback, with their new rope, the Cobalt, has been supporting us, and we completely appreciate the way that they are diving in and promoting the sport of team roping. So thank you, Fastback. Everybody remember, when you are making your purchasing decisions, to think about the kind of brands that bring you the stories that you want to hear. Just like this one with Travis Tryan and Walt. And remember, check out that Cobalt on July 1.